When I look at the news, I keep thinking that Egypt and all the events throughout the Mideast are not isolated events, but pieces of a global 21st century version of the French Revolution. A revolution that began in the fall of 2008 when the capital markets collapsed and an economic catastrophe began. This is what I see. In nations around the world, the middle and working classes, whether wittingly or unwittingly, have been coalescing around their frustration and dislike of the people who have held power, whom they blame for their condition due to mismanagement and greed. Those individuals and institutions who have been ruling governments and commerce and banking. Whether correct or not, and I really don't think it matters at this point, they see the ruling and wealthy class publicly living with great wealth and increasing wealth, while they are losing wealth and experiencing a decline in their quality of life. They see declining hopes for good jobs or jobs at all, and a decreasing likelihood that their children will enjoy a better life than they've had. They feel overtaxed and abused by the elites, who they believe don't pay taxes at all or pay at lower rates. Just at the time of the French Revolution, there has been an explosion of unsustainable debt by nations and individuals, and religious passions have become more dominant forces. And also, just as in the French Revolution, there is a new form of communications. It was pamphlets during the French Revolution, and the internet, Facebook, Twitter et al. Now. In both cases, communications became easy to use and accessible to individuals, not just institutions. So what makes it global? Well, look around the world over the past 2 years since the capital markets crash. What do you see? Protests and governments falling throughout Eastern Europe, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria. The collapse of Iceland due to economic failure and the protests of the middle class forcing change. Million-person marches in France. Student protests in London. Massive protests in Italy, Greece, throughout Europe. Protests in Russia and China. National strikes from Guadeloupe to Chad. And in the U.S., the rise of the Tea Party, a grassroots movement anchored in a philosophy that is unclear, but a very clear loss of trust in those who have been running the government, capital markets, the banks. Is there a global common denominator to all this? Could the characteristics that tie all these separate events together be that these aren't the acts of radicals and extremists, albeit radicals and extremists will take advantage of any opportunity. But these protests, as in Europe, as in Egypt, are the result of middle and working classes frustrated by and disgusted with those who have possessed power. Well, if an argument could legitimately be made without regard to whether it's absolutely true or false, if the argument could be made that there is a global phenomenon occurring, shouldn't we start thinking and talking and asking questions about that possibility? For example, shouldn't we ask this? What would a French Revolution look like in 2011 if it happened globally and if it was fueled and amplified by the new communications tools in the hands of individuals? Would it look a lot like what has been happening throughout the world for the past 2 years, with Egypt being one in a series rather than an isolated event? And if so, what is next? And where is next? And how does it end?